When my daughter-in-law Jessica told me I wouldn't be welcome at the family Christmas gathering, I just smiled, grabbed my keys, and made a call. 3 days later, the whole neighborhood knew exactly who Jessica Williams was, and that was just the beginning of my response. You won't believe what happened next. My name is Robert. I'm 65 years old, and for 7 years, I was the grandfather every child should have. I was the guy who showed up at birthdays with expensive gifts, who paid the bills when money was tight, who was always available when they needed someone to look after the grandchildren. But on Christmas Eve 2023, I discovered that unconditional love is just a beautiful concept until you meet people who turn generosity into an obligation. It was a freezing Tuesday when I went to my son David's house to drop off the presents. The house I had helped buy 3 years earlier when they were financially strapped. $45,000 from my retirement fund for the down payment. "It's just a loan, Dad," David had said. "We'll pay it back once we're financially stable." Sure. 3 years later, they never brought up the subject again. I knocked on the door of that 2-story house on Maple Street, carrying bags full of gifts for my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Tyler. Gifts I had bought with my retirement money because I wanted to see their smiles at Christmas. Jessica opened the door wearing that red dress I'd paid for the previous month when she urgently needed something for the company party. She didn't even greet me. She just looked at the shopping bags and sighed. "Robert, we need to talk." I entered the room decorated with a Christmas tree that had cost $300, money that had come out of my own pocket when David called me saying they wanted to make Christmas special for the children. The lights twinkled merrily, but there was something icy in the air that had nothing to do with the winter outside. "The presents can stay there," she said, pointing to a corner. "But you can't stay for Christmas dinner." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean, Jessica? We decided that this year we want a more intimate celebration, just immediate family. You understand, right? Family unit. Me, who raised David alone after his mother left us when he was 8 years old. Me, who worked 2 jobs to pay for his college. Me, who was there every time they needed money, a babysitter, or any kind of help. Apparently, I wasn't a close enough part of the family unit. And the children?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Do they know that Grandpa won't be here?" Jessica adjusted her hair with that arrogance I had come to recognize. "Robert, they'll understand. Besides, you can do something special another day. Maybe on New Year's Eve. Another day. As if Christmas were just another holiday that could be rescheduled for their convenience. It was there that I realized that love has an expiration date, and mine had expired. I left the gifts in that corner and walked through the house, looking at every detail that my money had bought. The kitchen with granite countertops, $8,000 that were absolutely necessary, according to Jessica. The Italian leather sofa in the living room, another $4,500 because children need to grow up surrounded by beautiful things. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every essential improvement had my sweat imprinted on it. "Where is David?" I asked, still processing what I had just heard. "At the office, working," Jessica replied without looking me in the eye. "He agrees with the decision. We think it's best this way." Better for whom? Certainly not for the children who always ran to hug me when I arrived. Not for me, who had planned this Christmas months in advance, buying specific gifts that I knew they would love. I went upstairs to David's office. I knocked on the door and went in without waiting for an answer. He was sitting at the desk I had set up for him the previous year, using the laptop I bought when his mysteriously broke. "Hi, Dad," he said without looking up from the screen. "David, your wife just told me that I'm not welcome at my own family's Christmas celebration." He finally looked at me, and I saw something that cut me deeper than any knife. Shame. Not shame for what Jessica had done, but shame for myself. "Dad, you need to understand. Jessica has a specific vision for family celebrations. She wants to create elegant traditions for the children. Elegant traditions. Apparently, having a bricklayer grandfather who raised his son alone didn't fit the elegant version of the family. And you agree with that?" David sighed as if I were a stubborn child who couldn't grasp simple concepts. "Dad, it's nothing personal. It's just, Jessica comes from a different family. They do things in a more refined way. More refined." That word echoed in my head as I looked at the son I had raised with so much love and sacrifice. "David, tell me something. When you were a child, and it was just the 2 of us spending Christmas eating pizza because it was all I could afford, Did you feel less loved? For the first time in years, I saw a crack in the mask my son had built. Dad, because I remember you saying those were the best Christmases of your life. Just the two of us, watching old movies, you opening presents I bought with the extra money from overtime. It was different, he murmured. It was authentic, I corrected. Now tell me, how much of that elegance is being paid for with my money? David couldn't answer, because he knew, just as I knew, that without my $2,500 a month to help with expenses, their refined life would crumble like a house of cards. I went downstairs and found Jessica in the kitchen, tinkering with something on the stove. The stove I'd bought when she said, cooking on old appliances was depressing. Jessica, he said, keeping his voice calm and controlled. I have a simple question. Do you think I'm a bad man? She turned around with that expression I'd seen so many times, like she was explaining something obvious to someone very slowly. Robert, it's not about being bad or good. It's about suitability. Suitability. As if 7 years of love, support, and sacrifice could be reduced to a matter of social conformity. It was there that I realized they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a monthly paycheck with inconvenient feelings, and checks can be canceled. I left that house and drove to my small home on Oak Street. The contrast was stark. They lived in a $400,000 house, while I lived in a modest $150,000 house that I had been paying off for 20 years. The difference? I paid my own bills. I sat down at my dining table with a cup of coffee and a calculator. It was time to do the calculations I had been avoiding for years. I took out my checkbook and started adding up the numbers. $45,000 for the down payment on the house. It's just a loan, Dad. $8,000 for the kitchen. The children deserve to grow up in a beautiful home. $4,500 for the sofa. Where do you want your grandchildren to sit on the floor? $300 a month for Emma's private school tuition. Education is an investment, Robert. $200 a month for Tyler's piano lessons. Don't you want your grandson to be cultured? $12,500 a month to help with expenses that started as temporary assistance 3 years ago and has become permanent. Another $500 here and there for emergencies. The car broke down. The washing machine malfunctioned. They needed new clothes for important events. The final bill made me nauseous. $127,000 over 7 years. $127,000 from my own sweat, my retirement, the inheritance my mother left me, money I could have used to travel, to improve my own home, to have a dignified life in my old age. In exchange for what? For being deemed unsuitable for Christmas by his own family. I picked up my phone and called my sister Sarah, who lives in Denver. Rob, how are you? Remember that invitation you gave me to spend Christmas with you? Of course. I said we'd love to have you here. Why? Did you change your mind about spending Christmas with David and Jessica? I told her what had happened. Sarah remained silent for a long moment. Are you telling me that after everything you did for them, they excluded you from Christmas because you're not elegant enough? Basically, yes. Rob, you need to stop supporting this ungrateful family. And you need to come to Denver. The kids here would love to meet Uncle Rob. Lisa always says you're the only relative she hasn't met yet. Sarah, can I ask you a question? Do you think I'm a refined man? She laughed. Rob, you're the most honest and hard-working man I know. You raised David on your own, built your own company, and always helped those in need. If that's not refinement, then I don't know what is. After I hung up, I sat in my old armchair, the one I hadn't replaced because all the extra money went toward making other people's homes more elegant, and made a decision. The next day I went to the bank and canceled the automatic transfer of $2,500. Then I called the credit card company and canceled the additional card I had given David for emergencies. Next, I bought a ticket to Denver. If they wanted a fancy Christmas without me, they were going to have to figure out how to pay for that fancy stuff themselves. And I was going to find out what it was like to be treated like real family. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was David, and for the first time in years, he seemed nervous. Dad, the bank called me. They said you canceled the automatic transfer. I canceled, I replied, continuing to pack my clothes for the trip to Denver. Why? Did something happen to your finances? The irony was almost comical. He was worried about my finances. My finances are great, David. In fact, they're going to get even better now that I've stopped paying for other people's elitism. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, Dad, is this about Christmas? Because if it is, we can talk. Yes, we can talk. Come to my house, now, and bring Jessica. An hour later, they were in my office. Jessica was wearing another expensive dress, probably bought with the money I sent every month. David looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his hands like he did when he was a child, and knew he had done something wrong. "Dad, I think there's been a misunderstanding," David began. "Which part was misunderstood?" I asked. "The part where your wife told me I wasn't suitable for the family Christmas, or the part where you agreed to it?" Jessica crossed her arms. "Robert, you're being dramatic. It's not a matter of suitability. So what's the question, Jessica?" She looked at David as if she expected him to save her, but my son was intently studying the floor. "Look, the truth is that my parents will be here for Christmas," she said finally. "And they have specific expectations about how things should be." "What kind of expectations?" "My father is a university professor. My mother works at an art museum. They're used to conversations about literature, politics, art. You know, I knew exactly what she was saying without having the courage to say it directly. "Jessica, are you telling me that I'm not intellectual enough for your parents?" "It's not that. So, what is it? Is it because I work with my hands? Is it because I don't have a university degree? Is it because my father was an Italian immigrant, and I grew up in a working-class neighborhood?" David finally raised his head. "Dad, nobody's saying that." "No? Then explain it to me, David." "Explain to me why, after 7 years of being a devoted grandfather, after $127,000 invested in your lives, suddenly I'm not worthy to sit at the same table as her parents." The number shocked them. I saw in their faces that they had never stopped to calculate how much I had given. "Dad, you never said it was this much." "Because I wasn't charging, David. I was loving. But apparently love has social class limits." Jessica shifted uncomfortably. "Robert, you're exaggerating." "Am I right? Then tell me, what exactly did you tell your parents about me?" She blushed. "I just mentioned that you were more practical, that you had a different background." "Different background," I repeated. "And what is my background, Jessica?" No, I want to hear you say it. You work in construction. And you didn't go to college. And you don't share the same interests as them." Finally, the naked truth. "Jessica," I said, getting up from the armchair, "you're right. I didn't go to college because my parents didn't have the money to send me. I started working at 16 to help at home. I built my own business with my own hands. I raised a son alone. And yes, I prefer an honest conversation about football to pretending I understand abstract art." I looked at the two of them. "But one thing I understand very well: character. And you two have just shown me exactly who you are." It was there that I realized that social class has nothing to do with money. It has to do with how you treat the people who love you. After they left, I sat at my dining table surrounded by bank statements and receipts. 7 years of generosity spread out on paper, each payment a testament to my unconditional love for a family that saw me as convenient, not essential. I grabbed my laptop and opened my online bank account. There it was, the scheduled transfer for tomorrow, $2,500 straight to David's account. Money that would automatically come out of my hard-earned money to support their elegance. I clicked on Cancel Automatic Transfer and confirmed. That's it. After 7 years, Robert Bank was officially closed. But I didn't stop there. I called Emma's private school. "Hi, this is Robert Thompson. I'm Emma Williams' grandfather, and I've been paying her tuition for the past 2 years. I'd like to cancel this responsibility starting in January. Mr. Thompson, I need to speak with the child's parents to..." "Sure. They will get in touch to arrange the payments." "Thank you." Next, I called Tyler's piano school. Same conversation, same result. Then I went to the folder where I kept all the emergencies from the last few years. Jessica's car repair, $200. New washing machine when theirs broke, $800. Necessary clothes for social events, $2,500 throughout the year. Each receipt was a reminder of how I had confused love with human ATM. I grabbed my phone and texted Sarah. "I accept the invitation. I'll arrive in Denver on Christmas Eve." The reply came within minutes. "What joy! Lisa is jumping for joy. It's going to be the best Christmas we've ever had." When was the last time someone was truly happy with my presence? When was the last time I was welcomed somewhere without having to pay for that privilege? I couldn't remember. I opened my closet and started sorting out clothes for the trip. Simple clothes, but clean and well pressed. clothes of a hard-working man who wasn't ashamed of who he was. I picked up the photo of David as a child that sat on my bedside table. It was of him at 8 years old, sitting on my lap on Christmas Eve, 1995. We were both smiling at the camera, surrounded by inexpensive gifts I had bought with my overtime pay. That child looked at me with pure adoration. She saw in me the hero who worked 2 jobs to give her everything he could. That child never made me feel inadequate or unrefined. Where had he lost that boy? I kept the photo in my bag, not because I hoped to get it back, but as a reminder of who I've always been. A man who knew how to love unconditionally. My phone rang. It was Jessica. "Robert, David told me about the transfers. I think you're being hasty. Why don't we talk like adults?" "Jessica, we're adults. Adults pay their own bills. You can't just cut off our aid out of nowhere. We have responsibilities." "Our help. As if it were my responsibility to maintain their standard of living. You do have responsibilities, and now you're going to learn how to fulfill them on your own." "Robert, be reasonable. The children will suffer. The children will learn that dignity cannot be bought with borrowed money. Perhaps that is the most valuable lesson they can receive." I hung up and turned off the phone. For the first time in 7 years, Christmas wouldn't cost a penny of my retirement money. And for the first time in 7 years, I was going to spend the holidays with people who truly wanted my company. It was there that I realized that freedom tastes like regained dignity. The next morning, I woke up to someone knocking insistently on my door. It was 7:30 in the morning, and through the living room window, I saw David standing on the balcony, agitated. I opened the door, still wearing my bathrobe. "Dad, we need to sort this out. Jessica didn't sleep all night." "Good morning to you too, David." He came in uninvited, as if he still lived here. "Dad, you can't just cut off all the help. We depend on that money." There it was, the stark truth they always hid behind pretty words about temporary help and loans. "David, sit down," he said, pointing to the sofa I'd bought 10 years ago, which was still standing strong. "I'll make coffee, and then we'll talk like men." While the coffee was brewing, I watched my son through the kitchen window. He was fiddling with his phone, probably calculating how much it would cost to maintain that lifestyle without my allowance. I came back with 2 cups. "Explain something to me, David. How do you think I felt yesterday when I discovered I wasn't elegant enough for my own family's Christmas?" "Dad, it wasn't like that. That's exactly what happened. His wife told me to my face that I don't fit her vision of a refined family, and you stayed silent." David lowered his head. "I didn't know she was going to say it that way. And how did you think she was going to say it?" "Sorry, father-in-law, but you're too poor and uneducated for my parents." "It's not about money or education. So what is it about?" David struggled with his words. It's about impressions. Jessica's parents are important people in the city. They know everyone. They have connections. Connections. The word that explains everything. And are you afraid they'll see where you really came from?" "It's not fear, Dad. It's strategy. Jessica and I are building something. My career, our social circle, the children's future. Sometimes you need to make sacrifices for bigger goals." Sacrifices. I was a sacrifice. "David, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want an honest answer. Are you ashamed of me?" He took too long to reply. Far too long. "Dad, it's not shameful. It's complicated." Complicated. 7 years of unconditional love were complicated. "Let me make it simple then," I said, standing up. "I'm no longer going to support the lives of people who are ashamed of me. Simple as that. Dad, you don't understand the pressures we face." "Yes, I understand. I understand that you want to live a life you can't afford. I understand that it's easier to use me as a bank than to achieve that life through your own effort. And I understand that when I no longer fit the image you want to project, I'm disposable." David blushed. "You're being unfair." "Unfair?" "David, I worked 40 years to have a decent retirement. I spent $127,000 of my financial security to afford your standard of living. And in return, I was deemed unfit to sit at the Christmas table." I picked up the bank statements that were still on the table and showed them to him. "Look at these numbers. Look how much of my future I sacrificed because I loved you." For the first time, David actually looked at the numbers. I saw the shock on his face. "Dad, I didn't know it was this much, because you never asked. They never cared where the money came from. They only cared that it kept coming." David stood up, visibly upset. "Dad, I understand your anger, but you can't just abandon us. What about the children? Emma has her piano recital at school in January. Tyler is on the baseball team, and they're going to keep having these things when you figure out how to pay for them. You're being cruel. It's cruel to use someone financially and then treat them as inadequate. It's cruel to teach your children that their grandfather is only good for paying bills." It was there that I realized that generosity without reciprocity is just exploitation with a pretty face. Denver welcomed me with fresh snow and genuine hugs. Sarah picked me up at the airport with a smile bigger than Colorado. "Rob, you look great. You're thinner. Are you taking care of yourself?" "I'm saving money on other people," I replied, and she laughed. Sarah's house was warm without being pretentious. Comfortable furniture, family photos on the walls, that cinnamon scent that only a happy home has at Christmas. Lisa, my 15-year-old niece, ran down the stairs when she saw me. "Uncle Rob, finally! Mom talks about you so much." Mark, Sarah's husband, greeted me with a firm handshake. "Robert, welcome. Sarah said you build houses." "I build. 40 years in the business. Man, I have a lot of respect for people who work with their hands. They must have incredible stories. What a difference. Here, my profession was a source of respect, not shame." During dinner, my phone rang several times. David, Jessica, numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. "Problems at home?" Sarah asked. "Nothing that can't wait until after Christmas." On the morning of the 24th, while I was helping Sarah prepare the turkey, my phone vibrated with a message from Jessica. "Robert, you're being childish. The children are asking where Grandpa is. They don't understand why you haven't come. You're hurting innocent children because of a misunderstanding between adults." I showed the message to Sarah. She shook her head. "She's trying to manipulate you using the children." "I know, but it hurts." "Rob, do you really think it's better for the children to see their grandfather being treated like a second-class citizen? Or is it better for them to learn that people deserve respect?" She was right. I sent a simple reply. "The children will understand when they grow up that Grandpa respected himself enough not to accept crumbs of love." Jessica's response was immediate. "You are destroying this family because of your ego." My ego. 7 years of financial generosity were ego. Instead of replying, I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned off my phone completely. Christmas at Sarah's house was a revelation. Lisa asked me questions about construction with genuine curiosity. Mark wanted to know about the most challenging projects I had faced. Sarah told stories from our childhood that made everyone laugh. No one treated me as inadequate. No one made me feel like I needed to apologize for who I was. At 8 p.m., Lisa sat down next to me on the couch. "Uncle Rob, can I ask you something?" "Of course, darling. Why have you never come to spend Christmas with us before?" The simple question caught me off guard. "Well, I always used to hang out with your cousin David and his family." "They didn't want you this year?" From the mouths of children. "It's complicated, Lisa." She thought for a moment. "You know, my friends always complain that grandparents are boring or always lecturing. You're the first grandfather I've met who seems genuinely cool. Thank you, my dear. If they were foolish enough not to want you, the loss is theirs." It was there that I realized that value doesn't depend on who can see you. It depends on who you choose to let into your life. I returned home on the 27th, tanned by the Colorado snow and with my heart full of good memories. The house felt different, more mine, less burdened by the worries of others. I was unpacking when someone started banging on my door. Not banging, banging. I looked out the window and saw Jessica standing on the balcony with 2 adults I didn't recognize. Probably her famous, refined parents. I opened the door and was met with 3 furious faces. "Robert," Jessica began in an icy voice, "these are my parents, Dr. Richard Harrison and Margaret Harrison. They would like to have a conversation with you." Dr. Harrison was a tall man of 60, with that posture that only comes from decades of feeling superior to others. Margaret was elegant, in a studied way, like an expensive porcelain doll. "Mr. Thompson," Dr. Harrison said without offering his hand, "I must say I am shocked by your behavior. Abandoning your family during Christmas is something I cannot comprehend." "Come in," he said, curious to see where this would lead. They settled into my modest living room as if they were royalty visiting a cottage. Margaret looked around with that expression of someone who smelled something bad. "Mr. Thompson," she began, "Jessica told us about your disproportionate reaction to the Christmas arrangements. Frankly, I'm surprised a man your age would act so immaturely." "How old do you think I am?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Well, you must have enough experience to understand that we can't always attend every family gathering. Sometimes we need to be flexible." Flexible. An interesting word coming from people who lacked the flexibility to include their own granddaughter's grandfather in Christmas celebrations. "Dr. Harrison," I said, addressing the man, "may I ask what subject you teach?" "Sociology at the university, specialization in family dynamics." The irony was delicious. A family dynamics expert who supported the exclusion of family members. Interesting. "And in your academic experience, how would you classify a family that excludes a member for not being refined enough?" Dr. Harrison adjusted his glasses, looking annoyed. "Mr. Thompson, there are nuances you're not considering." "Like which ones?" "Social compatibility, similar educational levels, common interests." "Ah," she said, feigning understanding. "So you believe in social segregation based on education and class?" Margaret shifted uncomfortably. "It's not segregation, it's social curation." Social curation. I had to admit, they were creative with words. "Jessica," I said, turning to my daughter-in-law, "explain to your parents how much money I've invested in your lives over the last 7 years." "Robert, that's beside the point. $127,000, he told Dr. Harrison. $127,000 from my retirement to support your daughter's standard of living." The silence that followed was absolute. "Now," I continued, "explain to me how someone who has financially supported a family for 7 years suddenly becomes unfit to sit at the same table." Dr. Harrison straightened up. "Mr. Thompson, money doesn't buy class." "You're right," I agreed. "Class is free, and you three have just demonstrated that you don't have any." Margaret blushed. "How dare you? How dare I do what? Speak the truth? Point out the hypocrisy? Or simply refuse to fund people who despise me?" It was there that I realized that university education doesn't teach basic decency. 3 days after the confrontation, my phone started ringing incessantly. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "Robert, have you seen Facebook?" "I don't use Facebook, Mrs. Patterson." "Well, you should see this. Jessica posted something about you that the whole neighborhood is talking about." 15 minutes later, I was at Mrs. Patterson's house looking at her computer screen. What I saw made me angry and impressed at the same time. Jessica had written a long and dramatic post. "It is with a heavy heart that I share with you the difficult situation our family is going through. My father-in-law, who has always been welcome in our home, decided to abandon us during Christmas because he couldn't accept that we wanted a more intimate celebration this year with my parents who came from far away. He reacted by canceling all the financial assistance he had been voluntarily providing, leaving my children without the extracurricular activities they love so much. We are devastated that a misunderstanding has escalated into something so destructive. The children don't understand why Grandpa doesn't want to see them anymore. If anyone knows of resources for families experiencing generational conflict, we would appreciate any guidance. Family, difficulties, prayer." The post had 47 comments from people offering support, criticizing stubborn grandparents, and suggesting family therapy. Jessica had turned my refusal to be treated as a second-class citizen into a narrative where she was the victim. "Mrs. Patterson, do you believe this version of events?" The 78-year-old woman looked at me over her glasses. "Robert, I've known you for 15 years. I saw you building that deck for them last summer. I saw you looking after the children every week. Something tells me there's another side to this story." "Yes, he has. Do you want to tell me?" I told her everything, from the exclusion from Christmas to the conversation with Jessica's parents. Mrs. Patterson shook her head several times. "That girl is clever. She posted that version before you could tell yours. I wasn't even going to tell anyone, and that's exactly why she won this round." I went home with my head spinning. Jessica had done something I hadn't expected. She had turned this into a public image war, and she had taken the lead. My phone rang. It was Bill, a friend from work. "Rob, my wife saw a post about you on Facebook. What's this story about you abandoning your grandchildren?" "It's complicated, Bill." "Dude, you don't seem like the type to abandon your family." Throughout the rest of the day, I received 5 similar calls. The story was spreading. That night, driving through the city, I stopped at a traffic light on Main Street and saw two acquaintances on the sidewalk pointing at my car and talking. One of them shook his head disapprovingly. Jessica had done something very clever and very cruel. She had painted a picture where I was the cold villain who punished innocent children, while she was the devoted mother trying to keep the family together. And the city was buying into that version. But Jessica had made a crucial mistake. She had made it public. And if it was going to be public, I had some things to show as well. It was there that I realized that whoever attacks first doesn't always win the war. Sometimes you just choose the battlefield. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. If Jessica wanted to play the public opinion game, I had a few aces up my sleeve that she didn't even know existed. First, I spent 2 hours organizing documents, bank statements, receipts, photos of things I had bought for them, screenshots of messages where Jessica asked for money. 7 years of evidence of my generosity versus a fantastical version on Facebook. Then I called my lawyer, Tom Mitchell. Tom, I need a consultation about defamation. Rob, what's this all about? I explained the situation. Tom listened in silence. Rob, technically you have a case. She made public statements that damaged your reputation. But lawsuits are expensive and time-consuming. Are you sure you want to go down that road? I don't want to sue. I want a formal letter. A letter? I want you to write an official letter explaining that she made false public statements and has 48 hours to rectify them or face legal action. That's going to cost about $300. Worth every penny. While Tom was preparing his letter, I went to town to do something I hadn't done in years. Go shopping for myself. I stopped at Target and bought a new t-shirt, a pair of jeans that fit me properly, and comfortable sneakers. Then I went to the barber and got a haircut. Not because I was preparing to impress someone, but because I was preparing to defend myself. On the way home, I stopped at Walmart and printed 20 copies of the most important documents. Bank statements showing the $127,000, receipts for the down payment on the house, messages from Jessica asking to borrow money. Back home, I prepared individual packages. Each one contained bank statement showing monthly transfers. Receipt for the down payment on the house, $45,000. Proof of the renovations I paid for. Print due post de Jessica no Facebook. A handwritten explanatory letter. The letter said, "For those reading this, this is the other side of the story you saw on Facebook. For 7 years, I financially supported my family because I loved them. In return, I was excluded from family Christmas for not being refined enough." The attached documents show the truth that Jessica preferred to omit. I did not abandon a family. I stopped supporting people who were ashamed of me. Robert Thompson. At 4 p.m., Tom called me. "Rob, the letter is ready. Do you want me to deliver it personally?" "No. Send it by registered mail. I want her to sign for the receipt." "What if she doesn't delete the post?" "Then we move on to plan B." "What is it?" "She gave me permission to make this public when she posted about me. Now it's just a matter of how I want to tell my side of the story." That night, I calmly ate pizza while thinking about the best strategy. Jessica had bet that I would never defend myself publicly, that I would accept the humiliation in silence, as I had done for 7 years. She was about to discover that a humiliated man and a broken man are different things, and I was far from being broke. It was there that I realized that patience is not weakness. It's just strategy in disguise. Tom's letter was delivered on Friday. Saturday morning, my phone rang with David shouting on the other end. "Dad, what's this story about a letter from a lawyer? Jessica is hysterical." "The letter is very clear, David. She has 48 hours to correct the lies she posted, or she will face a defamation lawsuit." "Dad, you're exaggerating. It's just a Facebook post." "A post that portrays your family as victims while making me look like the villain. A post that omits the $127,000 in financial aid I gave you. You can't sue the mother of your grandchildren. I can and will if she doesn't correct the false version she posted." I hung up and continued with my plan. I spent Saturday visiting people I'd known for years. Mrs. Patterson, my mechanic Joe, Sandra, who works at the post office, all the neighbors on the street. To each one, I delivered a package with the documents and my version of the facts. "I don't want you to take sides," I said. "I just want you to know the whole truth before forming an opinion." The reaction was always the same: shock at the values, anger at the ingratitude, support for my decision. "Rob, said Joe as he read the bank statements. $127,000. Man, with that money you could have bought a beach house. I could. I preferred to invest in my family. And they paid you by excluding you from Christmas? Basically. Joe shook his head. My grandfather always said, don't confuse generosity with stupidity. Sunday morning, Jessica's deadline was fast approaching. At 10 a.m., I received a message from her. Robert, I spoke with my lawyer. He said you don't have a case. My post expresses my genuine feelings about the situation. I'm not going to change anything. Perfect. That was exactly the answer I was expecting. At 11 a.m., I created my own Facebook account. First time in my life. At 11:30 a.m., I wrote my post. Hi everyone, I'm Robert Thompson. Many of you saw my daughter-in-law Jessica's post about our family situation. I thought you might like to hear about the side she forgot to mention. For 7 years, I voluntarily paid $2,500 a month to help my son and daughter-in-law. I also paid $45,000 for the down payment on the house, $8,000 for the kitchen renovation, the children's private school tuition, piano lessons, and dozens of emergencies. Total, $127,000 from my retirement. In return, I was excluded from the family Christmas for not being refined enough for Jessica's parents. When I stopped tolerating that ingratitude, I became the villain of the story. The documents are with my lawyers. Anyone who wants to see the evidence just needs to ask. Truth, family, want your respect. I have attached photos of the bank statements with the amounts highlighted in yellow. I posted at 12 hours sharp and turned off my computer. Now all that remained was to wait for the city to discover who was really lying. It was there that I realized that the truth can remain silent for a long time, but when it decides to speak, no one can silence it. Monday morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Mrs. Patterson called me at 7:30 a.m. Robert, did you see how many people shared your post? No, Mrs. Patterson. I haven't even opened Facebook yet. 47 shares, and everyone is commenting in support of you. I turned on my computer and opened my new account. What I saw surprised me. My post had 312 likes, 147 shares, and 89 comments. Everyone, literally everyone, was supporting me. That man is a saint for having endured 7 years. $127,000, and she's still complaining? I've known Robert for 20 years, the most honest man in town. Jessica always seemed self-serving to me. Now I know I was right. What a shame to exclude a grandfather from Christmas. But the best part was in the comments on Jessica's original post. The narrative had completely shifted. Jessica, you omitted the fact that he supported you financially for 7 years. Ungrateful woman. Her father-in-law deserved respect. You should be ashamed not posting on the internet. Poor children having a mother who treats their grandfather like that. Jessica had deleted several comments, but people kept commenting faster than she could delete them. At 10 a.m., I received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Thompson, this is Karen Mills from Creme News. We'd like to do a story about you. A reporter. Jessica had turned this into a public issue, and now the media was interested. I don't know if I want exposure on TV. Mr. Thompson, your story is going viral on social media. People are saying it's a perfect example of family exploitation of the elderly. This would be an opportunity to clarify the facts. I thought for a moment. Give me your number. I'll think about it. At 11 a.m., David showed up at my door. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 3 days. Dad, you need to stop this. With what? With this public feud. Jessica is receiving threats on Facebook. Her parents are furious. Even her boss at work saw the story. And she could lose her job. Her reputation is ruined. I looked at my son, the man I had raised alone, who had let his wife humiliate me for years, and felt more pity than anger. David, she ruined her own reputation when she decided to lie publicly. Dad, she was just venting. Venting? She painted me as a monster who abandons his grandchildren. She omitted $127,000 in financial aid that I gave you. She turned my refusal to be humiliated into a story where she's the victim. David sat at my kitchen table with his head in his hand. What do you want, Dad? For her to post a public apology? I want her to post the truth, the whole truth. To admit that she excluded me from Christmas because of prejudice. To acknowledge the $127,000 I invested in your lives. To stop playing the victim when she's the one who created this situation. And if she does that, will you stop all this? If she does that, I consider the matter closed. David left without saying anything else. At 3 p.m., Jessica posted an update. After reflection, I realized that my previous post didn't tell the whole story. Robert has truly helped us financially over the years, and we are grateful for that. We hope our family can overcome this difficult time. I read the post 3 times. It wasn't even close to what I had asked for. It was a half-hearted apology that still made me seem like the problem. I picked up the phone and called Karen Mills. Ms. Mills, this is Robert Thompson. I agree to give the interview. It was there that I realized that a half-truth is still a whole lie. The report aired on Thursday at 6 p.m. Karen Mills had done an exceptional job, showing the documents, interviewing neighbors, and painting a clear picture of what had happened. This is the story of Robert Thompson, she began, a 65-year-old grandfather who discovered that generosity has its limits when it becomes exploitation. The segment lasted 6 minutes. They showed my modest home versus the $400,000 house I had helped pay for. They interviewed Mrs. Patterson, who said, "Robert is the kind of man who would give the shirt off his back for anyone he loves, and that's exactly what he did for 7 years. They showed me the bank statements with my consent, the $127,000 highlighted in yellow. Karen explained how I had been excluded from Christmas due to social conformity issues. The most impactful part was when she read excerpts from Jessica's original post versus the documented facts. Jessica Williams portrayed her father-in-law as a man who abandoned his family on a whim, Karen recounted. The documents tell a different story, that of a man who stopped financially supporting people who deemed him unsuitable for their company. The report ended with me saying, I wasn't seeking revenge, I was seeking dignity, and I discovered that sometimes you need to stop giving so people can learn their worth. On Friday morning, David called me in a panic. Dad, the news report was on national TV. CNN picked up the story. It was true. My story had gone viral as an example of family financial exploitation and reverse ageism. Talk shows were discussing the case. Memes were appearing on social media with my photo and phrases like Grandpa who said no and hero of dignity. But the real consequences were only beginning. Dad, Jessica was fired. Like this? Her boss saw the news report. He said he doesn't want someone with ethical issues representing the company. Jessica worked at a public relations firm. Poetic irony. And there's more, David continued. Her parents went home early. Dr. Harrison said the university is re-evaluating some of its public positions on family dynamics. The sociology expert was facing professional scrutiny for supporting family exclusion based on social class. David, I'm sorry it's come to this. No, Dad. You don't feel it. You planned this. I reacted. There's a difference. The children are asking why everyone at school knows about Grandpa on TV. That hurt me. Emma and Tyler weren't to blame for anything. David, the children can visit me whenever they want. The fight was never with them. What? We don't have money for gas, let alone for children's activities. Financial reality was setting in. Without my $2,500 a month, they were discovering how much their lifestyle cost. David, this isn't my problem. You're adults. Solve it like adults. Dad, please. I admit we made a mistake. We all make mistakes. But can you help us one last time? On one condition. Which? Jessica posts a public apology. A real one. Admitting that I was treated with disrespect, acknowledging my generosity, and taking responsibility for my own choices. Not a half-truth. The whole truth. A long silence. I'll talk to her. It was there that I realized that consequences are relentless, yet effective teachers. A week after the report, I received an unexpected call. It was Emma, my 10-year-old granddaughter. Grandpa, Mom let me call you. My heart tightened. Hi, darling. How are you? Grandpa, is it true that you're not going to visit us anymore? How do I explain to a 10-year-old that her parents publicly humiliated me? Emma, Grandpa will always love you. But sometimes adults do things that hurt, and we need time to work things out. Mom said you're mad because we didn't pay you back. I felt anger rising. Jessica was manipulating the children now. Emma, listen carefully. Grandpa never gave money to be paid back. Grandpa gave it because he loves you, but when someone treats you badly, you need to defend yourself. Mom is crying a lot, and Dad is upset because we lost our house. What do you mean they lost their house? I don't know. I heard them saying they can't pay without your money. Jesus. The situation was worse than I imagined. "Emma, pass me your father," David answered in a tired voice. "Hi, Dad." "David, did Emma say anything about losing the house?" Silence, then a heavy sigh. "Dad, without your help, we can't cover the mortgage. We tried to refinance, but our income alone doesn't qualify for the amount we owe. And what is your plan?" "We don't have a plan. Jessica is unemployed. I earn well, but not enough for this house. We'll have to sell and move to a smaller place." The irony was cruel. The house I had helped buy, the one they had excluded me from celebrating, was now beyond their financial reach. "Do the children know?" "Not yet. We're waiting to be sure before we tell you." "David, can I ask you an honest question? Was it worth it?" "What?" "I had to humiliate myself to impress Jessica's parents. Was it worth sacrificing a guaranteed $2,500 a month to have a fancy Christmas?" A long silence. "No, Dad. It didn't count." "And what did you learn?" That I was an idiot. That I let my wife convince me that you were the problem when we were the ones being ungrateful. It was a start. David, do you want a chance to fix this?" "More than anything, Dad. So here's what's going to happen. Jessica is going to post a real public apology, admitting everything she did wrong. You're going to bring the kids to me every Saturday so we can spend the day together. And you're going to learn to live on the income you earn, not the money I earn. And are you going to help us again?" "David, I never stopped loving you, but I stopped putting up with disrespect. If you show that you've learned to value me, we can talk about occasional help. Help, not financial support." I understood. "And one thing, David, the children must never again know that they are going through hardship because of me. This is your responsibility." "Okay, Dad." It was there that I realized that love without limits is permission for abuse. Love with limits is a life lesson. The following Saturday, David arrived at my house with Emma and Tyler. It was the first time in 2 months that I had seen my grandchildren. "Grandpa," Emma ran to hug me. Tyler, more reserved at 8 years old, waved shyly. "Hi, everyone. I missed you all." David seemed nervous. "Dad, Jessica posted the apology yesterday. Did you see it?" I saw, and she really had seen it. Finally, a genuine request, where she admitted to having treated me disrespectfully, acknowledged my generosity, and took responsibility for the consequences. "Can the children stay until 6? They can stay until tomorrow if they want." We spent the day doing the simple things I had missed. I took them fishing at the lake, we bought pizza, we watched old movies on the couch. Tyler asked me about construction. Emma showed me a new song on the piano that she was learning at public school. "Grandpa," Tyler said as we ate popcorn, "Mom said you were mad at us. I've never been angry with you. Sometimes adults disagree about important things, but that doesn't change Grandpa's love for you. Are you coming back for Christmas?" I looked at David, who was listening from the kitchen. "If I'm invited properly, yes." At 6, when David came to pick up the children, he lingered at the door. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Of course." I was embarrassed in front of you, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life." The words I needed to hear for years. Continue. "You raised me alone after my mother abandoned us. You worked 2 jobs to give me everything I needed. You taught me honesty, hard work, how to treat people with respect. And when I grew up, I let a woman convince me that those qualities were inappropriate." He was crying now. "David." "No, Dad. Let me finish. You're the most honest man I know. And I threw away the best thing in my life because I wanted to impress people who, in the end, don't even care about us. Have Jessica's parents gotten back together?" "They returned to Portland the day after the report. They said they didn't want to be associated with the scandal." Jessica is devastated. "And how do you feel about that?" "Relieved. I finally saw who they really are, and I saw who I became trying to please them." We sat on the porch while the children played in the yard. "Dad, I know I messed everything up. I know I don't deserve it, but would you forgive me?" I looked at this man I had raised with so much love, who had lost his way, but who seemed to have found his way back. "David, I forgave you the moment you admitted you were wrong. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were before. I know. It means building something new, based on mutual respect. What do you want from me, Father? I want you to be the man I raised you to be. Honest, hard-working, and someone who treats people with dignity. I want you to teach that to my grandchildren. And financially? Financially, you can take care of yourselves. If you have a real emergency, medical, something serious, we can talk. But your standard of living is not my responsibility. Fair. It was there that I realized that forgiving is not forgetting. It's choosing to give a second chance to those who have shown they've changed.